This hour this evening, oil and gas major ONGC has withdrawn its 2013 case against the Gujarat government's demand for 8,000 crore rupees in royalties. The firm has agreed to pay the state over 8,000 crore rupees. However, in a curious twist, it's actually the central government and not the company that will foot the bill. Asmit Kumar is joining in with the details. Asmit, you've been going over the court proceedings and, of course, the meetings that took place. How does this even make sense? I mean, if this is a liability that was between, the company and the Gujarat state government, how does the centre get into the picture and foot the bill?
Well, indeed, you're right here. More questions than answers. Even as we're looking at a resolution of the issue where the centre has agreed to pay the bill. Again, this in principle, prima facie appears to be a case where the government is seeking to discharge liabilities of a publicly listed company which is traded on the markets every day, which has various minority private shareholders, and yet we find the centre looking to intervene and discharging their fiscal liabilities. Now, what's crucial to understand are the broad contours of the case. Now, beginning 2003, we find that ONGC was paying royalty in accordance with various acts and various statutes, was paying royalty to the state of Gujarat, but they were doing so on the gross realizations. Now, what's critical to understand here is that ONGC, being an upstream player, was also footing a large chunk of the subsidy burden, and subsequently they made various representation is that that subsidy amount should be deducted from the gross receipts, and then the net amount should be used for computation of royalty. What that effectively meant was a lower royalty outgo to the state of Gujarat. Gujarat was not impressed when this position was reversed in 2008. We saw various rounds of litigation leading up to the meeting that we had as recently as February 17th earlier this year. Earlier this month is when we had a meeting, three-way meeting between Gujarat, between Centre as well as ONGC, where interestingly the MOPNG, the Ministry of Petroleum, mooted the idea that how about the Centre intervenes, how about the Centre settles that bill of 8392 crores and let the Centre take over that responsibility. They even went to the extent of saying that they'll foot 15% of the bill this fiscal, and the balance 85% they'll settle in next fiscal year, that's FY18, and that's the Centre's proposal. Clearly, it left both the parties excited. The CMD of ONGC clarifying in the minutes of the meeting here that he's impressed with the idea also being welcomed by the state of Gujarat, and now we have the Centre now footing that mammoth bill of 8,400 crore rupees, and as you rightly said, raising more questions than answers.
Okay, so let's put some of those questions to the man who's run the company in the past, R.S. Sharma, former chairman and MD of ONGC, joining in. So really appreciate you joining in on this issue, which is, I mean, as taxpayers, a lot of people will be asking this, right? And I just want to get your perspective while we're also going to be putting this question to the Government of India, to North Block officials. How does this work? I mean, in your opinion, is there a method of accounting in which the Government of India, being the majority shareholder, simply the liability can be shifted to GOI and off ONGC's books?
Yeah, Surabhi, maybe that perspective is not getting clear. I feel that's very logical for the Government of India to foot that bill. First of all, you should realize that ONGC paying that royalty on the gross amount, and the fact is ONGC's net realization after the subsidy discounts being given to the downstream companies. So net realization of ONGC was on the net billing, not the gross billing. If ONGC was being subjected to pay royalty at the gross amount, that was very unfair. It's a listed company. There are minority shareholders. So, and I have been fighting that the proposal when I was heading ONGC quite vehemently, and we somehow were able to, hold on to that. So now that Assam government, first of all, they forced, government in that case forced ONGC to pay at that bill, and that was a lesser amount, about 1,200 crores. In this case, it is a much larger amount. So how can ONGC justify to his shareholders that they are getting realization on the post subsidy discount and they pay royalty on the gross?
Sir, please allow me to come in over here. We are not sort of debating the merits or demerits of paying that royalty on gross realization or net realization. I mean, I'm sure a lot of the investors and shareholders completely agree with your viewpoint that why should royalty be paid on the higher price and not the actual net realization. That's a different matter, sir. What we're trying to understand here is that ONGC, being a listed company, whatever liability that might arise, and that's subject to, court resolution, how does that liability get transferred straight away to the Government of India's accounts instead of the company's own books?
The same way, Surabhi, when this, under recoveries of oil companies were there, they were partially being met by the, the ONGC, Oil India, and partially the government of India used to absorb that. It is the same issue. Exactly issues that emanates out of the same. In case the state government is within its right to demand, let me tell you, I am not against state government's demand. They are right that as per the current government, Gujarat notification, that domestic producers to get international parity price, the benchmark fixed. So state government says that why they should be denied royalty of that amount. So they are logical for them to get it. But from ONGC's perspective, ONGC says I'm getting a net realization post the discount which is being forced on the ONGC by the government. So that ONGC is logical to say we'll pay at the lesser amount. So when obviously it will go from the central exchequer that whatever is the differential which is now coming 8,400, going from the central exchequer, I feel that's quite logical. The way the government has been justifying subsidy discounts.
So if I may intervene at this stage, Mr. Sharma. Hi, good evening, Mr. Sharma. Sir, Asmit here. If I may intervene at this stage, what you say, yes, logically, it does make sense for the royalty to be computed on the net amount. And while the shareholders might agree with that, I'm merely on the question of the legality here. As you rightly said, you yourself have been at the forefront in terms of this battle here, which began way back in the year 2008. And from the very beginning, this has been a bilateral exercise with the government of Gujarat on one hand, we have ONGC on the other, with the role of the centre being limited only to the point of the legislative exercise of policy making. Now we find that in fiscal terms, we find the centre intervening, we find the centre involving itself. And again, there are questions being raised under what law, under what statute can they come forward and take over the task of discharging liabilities of a publicly listed company, on the legality of it all, sir. Your thoughts?
Ashmit, let me counter that. What you say, you are raising a very logical legal issue. I am responding in a logical way. And look at it. I'll give another dimension of it. When I was heading ONGC, we received a notice from the income tax department that we don't recognize that whatever subsidy discounts we are giving to your another PSU, that is your intercompany arrangement, we will tax you on your gross revenue based on the gross billing. And in that case, I had to raise it to the highest level, even telling that if issue comes to the media, it will be big embarrassment to the government. In that case, the government, came to the rescue and they told tax authorities, don't precipitate the matter, so that let the matter rest there. It is the same logical. I'm talking on the logic. You, Asmit, you say the legality. Well, you strictly go by the legality, let the courts take a decision. But I'm talking of the logic of a commercial enterprise. How does it justify paying the royalty of the gross amount and when they are getting their...
Sure, sir.
There's no legality.
Sir, on the question of the judicial review itself... Fair enough. So on the question of judicial review itself, this is a move which, again, could be challenged. It's difficult to say as of now, early days. But just your thoughts on the legalities of it all. Has there been a precedent where we have seen similar liabilities being discharged by the government? And I ask that only because that should there be a case of judicial review, should this formula of the government, which again, on which there's not much clarity, is it taxpayer money being used? There's not much clarity on that. But just a scenario where we do see a case of judicial review, where this is called upon into question in a court of law. Are there precedents that you've seen where the government has taken over responsibilities of a public company such as ONGC?
Yes, Ashmit, I will give the same example, same issue, same subject. In income tax authorities, they were, I tell you, the tax assessing officer was very much within legitimate rights to demand that ONGC, that revenue to recognize at the gross billing. And there the government came to ONGC's rescue to get that, the notice withdrawn. Not withdrawn, it was not pursued because once a notice is issued, it has to see a logical end. The same subject, the taxation authorities demanded higher amount. As per strictly legal terms, they also invoked the same budget notification. As per that is the price ONGC should get. We will recognize ONGC revenue at the gross billing. And they raised huge the tax demand on ONGC. So there the government came to the rescue. Well, that is a, administrative decision of the government that subsidy discounts to be given. Look, that is a decision taken by the central government. Administrative decision, the same perspective, they have to accept this as well.
Right, Mr. Sharma, we'll have to leave it there at least for this evening, but I don't know if this is the last that we've heard of this issue or not. I mean, I'm just wondering as a, lay taxpayer, viewer, citizen of India, that, at a time when we're talking about creating this large Indian behemoth, downstream to upstream major to take on global oil giants, I mean, when we don't have our basic math still in place, where the money comes and where it goes, I wonder what we're really talking about here. But anyway.